Hello, church. How you doing? A little nostalgic to be back in here, eh? A little crammed. A lot of people say, why don't we meet in the Wittung anymore? The fact that you're sitting on your neighbor's lap is a perfectly good reason why we don't meet in the Wittung anymore. But every once in a while, it's good to get in here and snuggle, right? Especially when we're talking about marriage. If you brought a mug to church today, you brought your cup to church, put your hand up. Wow, there's all kinds. All kinds. Who hasn't won? You haven't won, have you? No. There were a few names in the hat, but I don't like any of them. So, so we're talking about marriage from this day forward. I'll never forget when just the first time I was a pastor, I was teaching a small group of new believers. That's what they give the new guy, say help all these people who are struggling with all kinds of difficult life issues and have just become followers of Jesus Christ and don't know what to do. Let's stick a 20-something kid in a room with them and he'll straighten them all out, right? Very bright. Anyways, I was heading up this group and I was walking through and we actually had a great time. We were covering a lot of topics and we went through the Alpha course together and things like that. But anyways, I was talking one week about the Bible and the value of the Bible. And I was kind of walking people through the different books of the Bible, and I said, and then the Song of Solomon, that one's about sex, and then I moved on to, Ecclesiastes and stuff, and there was a British lady there, and she said, wait a minute. I said, what? She said, there's a book in the Bible about sex. I said, yes, there is. She said, I don't believe that. I said, yeah, it's in there. She said, well, which one? I said, Song of Solomon. She said, I'm going to go read that. So she went and read it the next week. She goes, it is about sex. Yeah, sex is all over the Bible. It's a big deal about it. It's a big deal in marriage. Unfortunately, you would think by talking to a lot of people, I've told you this before, but I'll tell you again, one of the most frustrating things about being a pastor is the people who are having sex, you're trying to tell them not to have sex, and the people who should be having sex aren't having enough sex. It's just a constant tension, It's kind of interesting. Like once people, they get married and they're allowed, it's kind of like, oh, well, we'll move on, go on to something else, and then the other people are going, oh, wait, be committed to one person, monogamy, all this kind of thing. Let's get, do your wedding and all that kind of thing. Everything goes good for about 18 months and then, and psychologists tell us a lot of the emotions of a relationship with someone, a lot of the emotional stuff will dry up after 18 months. Did you know that? For everybody. Happens to everybody. So all of a sudden this person with whom you couldn't get enough of comes across, they vary between either a little bit annoying to actually very repulsive. And, all of a sudden you're, I can have sex with that person, I'll never forget I was teaching in our early days here at the church once, and I was mentioning it, and I quoted 1 Corinthians chapter 7, where it says, do not deny one another. It's talking about marriage. Do not deny one another unless there's for a time, agreed upon time of prayer and fasting. But then after that, make sure you come back together and all that. And I said, ladies, you have to have sex with your husbands. It's just, this is an important part of it. And I couldn't believe it. I went up to the lobby up there after the service, and these two women who don't go to this church anymore because they got tired of listening about sex. But they met me and said, you mean we have to have sex with our husbands? And I'm looking at them going, is it that bad? Like, why did you get married? What's the point of it? Because sex is the only reason to get married. Think about it. All the other stuff you got to put up with, there's got to be some give back on that, right? Disagree with me? Okay, I'm being a little misogynistic, but I'm being a troglodyte, aren't I? Yes. So, my wife and I have a joke about the troglodyte thing, but I won't tell you because it's personal. So today we're talking, from this day forward, we're talking about the type of interaction that increases intimacy. Sex is a part of it, but I want to talk about other aspects of it, about things we need. Now, we all are on our social media, we're texting, we're Facebooking, we're doing, we're tweeting, all these kind of things, and we're very good at communicating on that kind of level. The one thing that we kind of struggle a little bit with as people, and I got to say in our society, we're really trying to fix this. We really are. There's a lot of help out there. But we don't know how to talk to each other anymore. We don't know how to sit down with someone and have a good talk and to gain anything from that. Kind of the only time two people sit down and have a long discussion is when they're fighting. And the idea of enjoying each other or enjoying your spouse or enjoying a friend is kind of a lost art. You know, the idea of drinking someone in. But there's actually multiple studies that show that not only do we need intimacy with other people, it actually is very good for us. And so I'm going to list stuff that is completely from non-Christian sources. I'm going to quote all kinds of healthy stuff today to talk about interaction in the context of someone who you're married to. Now, I realize that about half Canadian adults are not married right now. They're single, and I want to be sensitive to you. But chances are you have been or will be someday in a marriage experience. So watch and learn and hopefully pick up some stuff for everyday life. First two verses, read. This week, the theme is having fun. And in the book of Ecclesiastes, here is Solomon, the writer of Song of Solomon, says, live happily with the woman you love through all the meaningless days of life that God has given you under the sun. The wife God gives you is your reward for all your earthly toil. See, I told you. Ecclesiastes 9:9. Ecclesiastes 9:9 also says, enjoy life with your wife whom you love. Okay? Now, there's three types of fun that each marriage should have that promotes intimacy. Okay? The first one is what I call face-to-face. Face-to-face. Song of Solomon, chapter 7, verses 1-4. How beautiful your sandaled feet, O prince's daughter. Your graceful legs are like jewels, the work of a craftsman's hands. Your navel's like a round goblet that never lacks blended wine. Your waist is a mound of wheat encircled by lilies. Your breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle. Your neck is like an ivory tower. Your eyes are like pools of Heshbon by the gate of Bath Rabbin. Song of Solomon, chapter 7, verses 1-4. Our last young adults meeting, or actually 2 ago, we actually took out a whiteboard and we drew what this woman must look like. It was a hideous creature. Your stomach's like a mound of wheat, you know, and your neck's like a tower, you know, your neck's about this long, and your eyes are like pools, you know. You got like Cocker Spaniel eyes going there. I'm thinking, boy, you know, what attracts you to people is really different for different cultures. But here's this person face to face with someone, and he's drinking her in. He is enjoying her. And in the Song of Solomon, there is the reciprocal kind of talk about the woman, how she sees the man in the face-to-face interaction. This is a lost art, and a lot of times a major indicator that a marriage has gone a little dry is when you actually never look at each other and you're never looking into each other's eyes. A healthy marriage is one where a married couple look deeply into each other's eyes every day and say, hi there, right? Looking deeply into their eyes and saying, hi there. And, you know, and ask yourself the question, and wives and husbands, do not elbow your spouse, okay? Because it takes two to not look at each other, all right? But, you know, when is the last time you looked deeply into each other's eyes? You know, and some people go, well, I can't remember, you know, kind of thing. If you don't remember it, you probably haven't done it, okay? So the idea, intimacy. But the face-to-face interaction. I always say with married couples, some people enjoy parallel play, some people enjoy face-to-face play. A healthy marriage will have both. There are things you should do with your spouse, and there are things you interact face-to-face and where you talk about things. And some people say, oh, you know, she'll say, I worked hard all day, I get home, I don't want to talk to anybody. You know what? Do what you need to do to freshen up, you know, grab supper, you know, freshen up and those kind of things, and then go and do something where you can interact face-to-face. Or when you have a date, if you go to a movie, that's great, you're side by each, but then go to a coffee shop and be face-to-face and interact with each other. This has enormous health benefits. This is actually from a business periodical. It talks about the benefits of face-to-face communication. It says, first of all, it establishes more trust than other modes of communication. You learn to trust people better, or you are more trustworthy when you're face-to-face with someone. And there's all kinds of tells that go on with people. Body language, what their eyes are doing, what their arms are doing, all these kind of things. A good business person will learn how to read other people. And some people this has to be learned from the ground up. Some people have no sense of what's going on around them. You know, they're the person that's talking to someone, and they're giving them all kinds of hints that they are not into the conversation. They'll try and change the topic. They'll cross their arms. They'll stand back. They'll look around. Their eyes will glaze over and get all watery, and they'll keep talking. And that's an unhealthy. They're not reading the signs of the person. Okay, Bruce Wilkinson, who is a phenomenal writer and teacher, he's the one that wrote Prayer of Jabez years ago, talks about his favorite professor when he was studying was Howard Hendricks, Dr. Howard Hendricks, an elderly man who I think has passed on, but was a phenomenal teacher. And Bruce said that Howard had this philosophy that he had to keep everybody in the classroom engaged all the time. So he was always looking to engage people. And Bruce said he wanted to run a little social experiment on Howard. So what he did is one of his classes, he sat at the back and looked out the window. And he said, out of the corner of his eye, he could see Howard saw him looking out the window. And so Howard was teaching a principle, and he said, wait, and he raised the board, and then he came out another way. Looked back, Bruce still looked out the window. So then he told a really funny joke, and everybody busted up laughing. And Bruce said, like he was practically falling apart, holding his composure, looking out the window. It's a really funny joke. And then Howard tried something else. And then finally he ran down the aisle and said, Wilkinson, what is it you're looking out the window? It's so interesting. You know, he just couldn't handle the fact that he wasn't engaging. Face-to-face communication establishes more trust. It's more productive than other modes. A lot of people say, well, a text is quicker. Yeah, it's quicker, but it's not as effective. Face-to-face with someone, when you're interacting with them, a lot more can be derived from that look. In fact, the more familiar you are with a person in face-to-face communication, the more that trust and that productive ability comes through. The next thing, face-to-face communication establishes you to be more credible. You have more credibility, and it also can be more efficient. During the Civil War, the Southern Confederate States did really well in the war pretty early on because General Lee, who was the head of the Confederate Army, had a kind of right-wing secret weapon of a man called Stonewall Jackson. They nicknamed him Stonewall Jackson. Stonewall Jackson was one of the most brilliant military tacticians in all history. In fact, many, many times when the Confederates were right on the cusp of being defeated, Jackson would show up somewhere on the field with his troops and completely blow everybody out of the water. A number of times, he would move his troops at double the speed anybody could. And so where the Union wasn't expecting him to be, he would all of a sudden show up. He pulled end runs around armies. He split his army at different times, even though he's vastly outnumbered, and attacked from two different directions and beat a completely different, larger group. He was just a brilliant, brilliant tactician. And Robert Lee had this established relationship with Stonewall Jackson where they knew each other deeply. He actually had a beard. Jamie, can you stand up, turn around? He looks just like Stonewall Jackson. We have Stonewall Jackson here, man. We have Stonewall Jackson. They had a relationship where he could just infer something and Jackson would go do it. He didn't have to order him to do much. He would just say, boy, it'd be nice if we do this, or I wish there was a way we could do this. And Jackson would go do it. Anyways, tragic for the South, Stonewall Jackson one time was out examining the enemy lines. He was riding back on his horse and he got shot by his own pickets. One of his own soldiers shot him, and he ended up dying. So you have, like, within a month, Lee is campaigning in the north, and the Battle of Gettysburg happens. And the first day of the Battle of Gettysburg was all about high ground. If you get high ground, you're doing much better. And he had a new general who had replaced Stonewall Jackson, George Ewell. And I remember the words were that Lee looked at Cups Hill, which was a high ground that really affected the battlefield, and said, boy, it would be really nice if we had that ground. Now, all he had to do is say that to Stonewall Jackson, and that would be the first thing he'd do. He would make that. He'd see that inference as an order. But because Lee didn't know his general well, and Ewell didn't know him, he didn't pick up on the order properly. And so he delayed. He tried to do other things and all that. And by the time he was moving up Cups Hill, the Union had fortified it too much. and the battles of Gettysburg was lost primarily because the Union held all the high ground. Lack of communication. In a married couple, face-to-face communication is so essential. The ability that you have to look deeply into another person's eyes and into their soul. You know, I guess a question. If you went home and sat in a chair and you just looked at each other and didn't say anything, how long would it take you to get really uncomfortable? You know? Truth of the matter is we get married and then we forget about each other, and then you move on and you don't have that face-to-face interaction. So that's a healthy way of looking at things. The second thing is what I call side-by-side communication. Come, my lover, let's go to the countryside. Let's spend the night in the villages. Time spent together is essential for a healthy relationship. This is where you do things together. A healthy marriage includes interaction where you're doing things together. If you are someone that all you want is face-to-face, your partner won't be able to handle that all the time, whether it's a boy or a girl. If you're constantly wanting face-to-face, and the only meaningful thing for face-to-face to you, and this happens with a lot of couples, so they really, they're good face-to-face, but they don't have anything they do together. And there should be side-by-each things. And, you know, there may be a favorite show you like to watch, or you go to movies, or even better, you walk, you play a sport together, you go out to nature, you camp, you do something where you're doing side by each. This is so healthy for a relationship because you learn a lot about the other person in observing or teaming up with them to do things. And this is incredibly helpful for them. It also has enormous impact on your kids. Your kids, when they see you working together, will learn more about teamwork. They'll learn more what it means to work alongside another person. Studies in side-to-side interaction describe it as being able to do these things. It builds unity. So you become more intertwined with the person when you do things together. You learn teamwork, trust, and success. You educate your children. You encourage health and weight loss. The more you do with someone, those kind of things, you're probably the healthier you're going to be. It decreases illness and helps you live longer. And some people say, marriage doesn't mean you live longer. It just seems like it's longer. It builds self-esteem. It reduces stress. It promotes sensitivity to others. You learn about interacting with other people. It eliminates boredom. It eliminates loneliness. It encourages helpful friendships. It helps the tourism industry. That's a one you probably didn't think of. It gets you outside, and it improves your social interaction. Side by each is of great value. I encourage couples to have a date night each week, if you can, even if you've got little ones. Scrimp a babysitter. I talked about this story. My wife and I, had no money when our kids were little. And one time we had, I think it was $15 for a date, 15 or 10. And the going rate when the boys was little was about $5 an hour. It's about 10 an hour now for babysitting, right? It's about 10 an hour, something like that. And there's a lot of people who were little kids. I don't know. What's the rate now? 8 to 10. Okay. I know. But you know what happens? They've grown up like mine have, and now I got to send them over to take care of the grandparents. What was I talking about? Oh, anyway, so we had $10. So we paid $5 for an hour of babysitting. We went down to No Frills. We bought a thing of strawberries and some whipped cream. Just relax. And we parked by the water on a little lake, and we played, one of those sappy romantic radio stations, You Are My Oxygen, and, all these kind of things. And we ate strawberries, dipped them in the whipped cream and ate them and talked and had an hour date and went back and took the babysitter back. And we always look back on that day as one of our best dates ever. It was just fun. Because we had nothing, and we had to be creative. So we made stuff up, and we tried to find the hokiest, most romantic, sappy radio station. And while we're really close, we had to admit it was pretty funny to listen to some of the lyrics of these songs. And we were listening to them, but we just laughed and had fun and talked, and the water was beautiful, the strawberries were good, and we did that for $10. Worked out pretty well, right? So there's always something you can do. Tell your grandparents to move to town so they can babysit for you. But try to have a date night. And on that date night, do some side by each and do some face-to-face. Just combine both. And if you have a date where you do a lot of face-to-face, make your next one a side by each. And then the last one, the one you've all been waiting for, belly button to belly button. I couldn't find a picture that I could really show in a church for this one. Come, my lover, let's go to the countryside. Let us spend the night in the villages. Let us go early to the vineyards and see if the vines have budded, if their blossoms have opened, and if the pomegranates are in bloom. There I will give you my love. Song of Solomon, chapter 7, verses 11, 12. I know you're all going to do your devotions this week because you're all going to go read the Song of Solomon. You know, if there's ever a one I give you, hey, here's homework that I know you're going to do for sure, this will be it. In fact, some of you probably won't even be out of the building. You'll be reading it. Proverbs 5, 18 and 19 says, may your fountain be blessed, and may you rejoice in the wife of your youth, a loving doe, a graceful deer. May her breast satisfy you always. May you ever be captivated by her love. The idea of interacting with someone. Revelation 2 and 5 says, remember the height from which you fall and repent and do the things you did first. The principle of enkindling romance when the romance runs out is to do the things you did first. You see, the things that bring a couple together are a lot of hormones and chemicals and things like that. They bring you together, make you commit to each other. They're there to make you procreate and to love another person and to be drawn to them. Those things that bring you together are wonderful. The problem is they don't last. Okay? They don't last because you become familiar with each other. And when you become familiar with each other, familiarity breeds contempt. After a while, you start to get frustrated with each other, or you realize that how different you are, and that starts to grate on you. And you need to take a different tact later in marriage to how you rekindle romance. You say it's gone. No, it's not gone. It can come back. But what you do is you go back, okay, when we were dating, what were the things we did? You know, what do you do when you're dating or when you're first married? You're always touching each other. You're, rubbing your hands through their hair. You're tickling their hand. You're walking. You're talking. You sit and listen to music. And this is a great date, real cheap. Okay, turn on all the lights. Download some classical music. Mozart, I suggest. You never get anything better than Mozart. But if you're really eccentric, you can use Ravel. And lie there in the dark. Turn out all the lights. Play it loudly, and just lie on the living room floor. You know? And you say, well, when you fall asleep or whatever, try to stay awake. And just do that. It's an incredible experience. It really is, because so few of us ever stop, ever actually relax, ever listen to something. The music's captivating, just draws you out. I mean, if you have to listen to Lionel Richie or something, but listen to something that captivates you and makes you dream and gets your imagination going and all those kind of things. Very inexpensive and a wonderful thing you can do. But the idea of promoting intimacy is doing what you did at first. Go back to the things you did when you were dating. And I ask you a question. When's the last time you saw a movie where a guy and a girl get together that doesn't just focus on the first 6 weeks of the relationship? Can you think of one? Steve, you know one? One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? What?
No, we just watched one, Meet the Morgans.
Meet the Morgans, okay. Okay. But you have to say that's the exception rather than the rule? What would you say? 99% of movies are about what happens the first 6 weeks of a relationship? What about you, Michael?
Well, there's Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but and everyone who saw the movie laughed.
Yes. I love it when they're driving in the van and shooting and everything, and they're playing them all out of Love by Air Supply. Just awesome. There's a lot of domestic stuff in that one that's not good, though. But, it really is. They beat each other pretty bad. But anyways, at Kawartha Community Church, we do not endorse any movies. Well, I used to be a problem. I'd show a clip, and that was Sunday night's entertainment. And some of the movies I showed clips from probably weren't good for your 8-year-old. So, like I said, I do not recommend movies here or whatever. In fact, I don't even watch movies. I have a friend of a friend who watches them for me and just tells me what's in them. Always. But the reason so many movies are about the first 6 weeks in a relationship is because there's all kinds of dynamics when you're first finding out about them. The newness, the excitement, the digging below the surface, the mystery of it is very sensual. It's just a really exciting time. And in our voyeuristic society, we love seeing that. We love seeing it. When a couple are first learning about each other, maybe they start and they hate each other, and and by the second hour of the movie, they're starting to warm up to each other, and they're coming together. We love that story. Why do we love that story? Because it is the most exciting thing that can happen. And so later in your marriage, when you're not in that phase anymore, which is about 99% of your marriage, what you do is do the things at first that you did. Write a note, write some poetry, send a card. Call them and tell them you're thinking of them. Text them a picture. No, don't do that. Text them and tell them you love them. Phone them and just don't say anything, just breathe heavy. Do whatever, the stuff you did, You remember the late night phone calls, where you're talking on the phone? Oh, I love you, love you, love you, love you. I love you, love you. All right, we should go, okay. Are you going to hang up first, or am I? I'll just listen to the click, because that way I have you as long as I can. Are you still there? Yeah. Okay, you going to hang up? Yeah, I will. So what do you think about them Jays? And it's just on these the conversations go on and on and on and on. Linger. Never forget, Jennifer, who is my wife's younger sister, was talking about her parents. This was way back when Jennifer was 11 or whatever. And they were talking about kissing or whatever. And she said, oh, it was one of those kisses. And what kind of kiss? She said the kiss and linger. Yeah, I have kissing and lingering, right? Make out. When's the last time you made out with your spouse? Those kind of things. Increase the mystery. And one person will say, my spouse, they better start doing that or they're going to lose me. It's not the Christian approach to things, okay? The Christ follower says, what can I do on my part? What can I do on my part? And what can the Holy Spirit work? And a lot of times, the instigation of one reflects on the other and has an impact.